Anytime you're ready, John. Anytime you're ready.
All right, I'm calling the meeting to order, and if everyone will rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First up, announcements. The next hearings on the 25-26 operating budget will be, the next hearing, I should say, will be Monday, April 7th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in Village Hall. And let's see, we have a check over $25,000 to Pacific Trans Global Construction Corp. For various village projects. It's $32,516.35. Next up, we have correspondence from the Irvington Historical Society. And if somebody wants, rather than me sit here and read your letter, if you would like to present the contents, you're certainly welcome to do that.
And, why don't you do that, Scott, and I, if you don't mind, we have a little packet that we'd like to distribute. I'm Veronica Gedrish, and Scott is our vice president.
And we do have copies of the letter in the agenda.
Great.
That doesn't mean you can't speak to it, but
Yes. So, and what we hope to do is answer any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, hi. As Veronica said, my name is Scott Mosenthal. I'm the Vice President of the Irvington Historical Society. And thanks. Start off with a thanks that, first of all, you let us come here tonight to talk to you on a kind of late notice. But we saw it was budget time, and we figured we had some requests, so we might as well get that letter in as soon as we could. And then you'll see there's a couple of other things we've added to that packet. So basically, as the letter states, and I don't want to go through the whole thing because you've obviously read it, and I don't want to bore you with the details, but we find ourselves at a little bit of a crossroads. We've operated for a number of years. If you go way back to early 2000, well, way before that, but 2000, really early 2000s, of course, when the McVictor House was remodeled, and the Historical Society jumped in, and that became our space. And it's been ever since. So for the last 25 years or so, that's where we've been. And the village has helped us on a number of occasions. You give us money every year to help us with the storage of our archival material. And you've helped us very much with a couple of building projects, the elevator, the roof being two of those. But we find ourselves at this point operating at a deficit. We do have a couple of fundraising type of events. We have membership. There are several hundred people on that. We run a gala at the Ardsley Country Club every year, which generates quite a bit of money for us. But it turns out that they're now asking for quite a bit of money to rent the space. And generally, that's the story of what's happened over the last couple of years. Certainly, Village Board, the last people I have to tell, costs have gone up, would be you folks. This has been felt by everybody, and we are no exception. And in the letter, of course, there are a couple examples, whether it's the printing cost or, as I said, the cost of the location for the gala. The archival storage is doubled. So we're here tonight to ask you to consider increasing what you do give us for our budget. The letter details all the things that this society does for the village. Again, I don't think I need to go through all that. Hopefully, you folks are aware of its importance and why we feel it's critical that this village does have a historical society. And the last thing we want to do is to sort of get to the point where, like all other things, are just online. We run a number of programs which are in person. Of course, the exhibits that go on every year. And we're a volunteer organization, and hundreds of hours go into this thing. And I would open it up to any questions you might have. Veronica, is there anything you wanted to add to what I've said?
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
I just want, one point I wanted to make, and that is that I think that,
Do me a favor, just state your name into the mic,
yes,
just so that.
sorry, I'm
everybody who's at
Veronica
home-
Gedrich, President of the Historical Society. I think we see it as our primary goal to make what we do accessible to everybody who's interested in Irvington history, regardless of whether they have funds to pay. So this means we do programs for fifth graders and their teachers. We make our archives available for people who are doing research. We engage high school students to produce documentary shorts with the material from our archives. And our programs are available to seniors who may have limited budgets. So this is what we do, and we hope to continue to do it in the same way.
I had a couple of questions just so I can understand the 2025 revenue and expenses. So there's a 13,000 revenue from the county and then a 13,000 expense for digitalization. I assume they're matched, right? In other words, you get 13,000 to the county to do the digitalization.
Yes.
And the other question I had is, 10% of your budget is printing and postage. What do you print and what do you send?
Good question. We put out a publication called The Roost,
Yes,
4 times a year.
we get it,
No, you get it. We send out postcards highlighting events that are coming up.
Fundraiser.
Fundraising publicity material for that. So the programs and our sign outside, the board that goes up outside the McVicker House would be part of that as well.
So just because it's interesting when you say the Roost, it's like the way we experience the Roost is electronically because it comes to the office.
Oh, okay.
And Karen scans it and sends it to us as part of our Friday email. So we're already getting that electronically. And that's why I was just wondering if it needs to be in print. Do people need a print copy of that or could it be a digital publication?
Go ahead.
Actually, we do have a number of seniors who are supporters of the community and they don't engage in computers. We hope one day that we will be able to only circulate digital copies. And one of the things we're working on now is searchable, through our website, searchable features so that people can actually look for an article about the Octagon House instead of going through all of the, previous roosts to find it. So that will really add to the value of the Roost.
Can I say something?
Yes, if you
Edna
could.
is a board member of the
Yeah,
Historical Society.
my name is Edna Kornberg. I'm honored to be the photographer for the Irvington Historical Society. This will be the 7th year that we have our legacy project, where we honor people who have lived in the community all their life or moved here and raised their children here. I take photographs of them. We have a gala every year to raise money. We blow up the photographs to 2 feet by 2 feet. People like Scott interview them, and their family comes and they love the event. It's an honor to do this for them. Was there anything else I wanted to add? About them? I covered that, right. No, but it's great. It really is.
Thank
And
you.
I hope that when I'm that age, I can be honored.
So I have a question, is the expense for the fundraiser reflected in the 2025 budget?
So, if I'm looking at the same page
Looks
you
like a
are,
net number, right?
Yeah.
the 40,000?
No, the 14,805, the 2025.
Yeah, so in other words,
projected
it cost us
expenses.
40
I'm sorry, in the projected expenses.
for that event?
Yeah, like the difference between like how.
Yeah, just subtract
Fundraiser figure is a net,
Right.
so just subtract the 14 from the 40 and that's what it cost
Well,
them.
because what I'm noticing is for 2024 is that more than half of your profit is like taken up. Have you considered a different venue for your fundraiser?
Yes, and we've had it in
How that would
different,
impact
yeah, it's a great
attendance
question.
and-
Yeah.
It's a great question, and we've had it at different places. But I guess with this one, we've never had the turnout that we have at this this particular event. And we're asking, we went from $150 to $175, thinking, well, that's going to give us some money. And Country Club has obviously raised it. I would say it's a place that attracts a lot of folks. It's obviously a beautiful venue. It's got a history to itself. And it turns into be kind of this Irvington reunion. It's intergenerational, and there's people from all stripes. And I think that's really become one of the drawing cards of why the gala has taken off the last 5 years, because that's where it is. Now, could we move it somewhere else? Sure, we have, but I'm not sure we would get nearly the turnout or even the revenue despite the cost.
Yeah, I think it's just, and that's not what you were saying, I apologize, but I agree that it's not a great percentage. If you're taking in 40,
Sure.
you're only making 14, that's a lot of expenses. you
Yep,
know?
we would agree with that.
I think the other question that I had flew out of my head, it will come back.
Okay. I can relate to that.
Because I got a question. As hopefully you will not be sitting here at the end of the meeting, but at the end of the meeting, we're gonna be trying to figure out how to plug a $150,000 hole that is the gap over our tax cap. So, my question to you goes to, we're talking about roughly $10,000. It might be easier for the village, since I understand you have a net lease for that building, for us to address building problems rather than operating expenses. So my question, and I'm not expecting an answer at the mic. It
Good.
probably requires a follow-up conversation. But you did have, I think there were a few things in here that seemed to be, I would call building repairs.
Yeah, the elevator,
siding.
the gutter, yep.
Yeah, so,
1,000 for repairs.
Is that upkeep though? That's like, is that regular?
Well, there's always something. It's a
Yeah.
1853 house, so things are gonna happen, and,
It's just like the maintenance of the.
yeah, just, to keep it going.
You're saying if we took that over, it wouldn't be a cash
well,
out, is that what you're saying?
what you pay for the building, and correct me in case I misunderstood our conversation, is you keep the building standing. In a sense, you're not paying rent, you're keeping the building standing.
Yeah.
That probably, and by standing, I mean keeping things roughly in repair. And that probably means that there are expenses here that might fall in a capital expense category rather than an operating expense category, I assume. And if that's the case, that might be a conversation that is worth having, just because that might be easier for us to address.
Sure,
Because the building, it remains the village's asset. You know, we're not taking it away from you, but the point is that we're still the landlord.
you are. So I guess my answer to that would be yes. Well, that's a conversation, and I'm not really ready to answer that now, but.
Understood. Maybe we could set something up and you can decide who should attend. And if you have examples, it's worth hearing about. Because maybe the way to deal with that is when the inevitable happens, because old houses, it happens, that we cover that expense rather than you, and that might be the other way of getting you the money. that you
Okay,
need.
I guess my first look at that would be, I don't know, because of the operating expenses, that's where we're you've helped out with the lift already. It's where we're finding the deficit is the day-to-day stuff and just the overall operation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
But not to say that might be something else we should look at. I
Yeah.
mean, sure.
Is the archive space rental, is that a specific place that's dedicated
Yeah, it's around the
to-
corner. The next street down, whatever that street is.
North Dearman.
North Dearman.
Oh, but it's not a dedicated like art or history archive place to keep with like the humidity kept to a certain temperature or whatever, it's just a space.
It's a storage space.
So,
It's controlled.
It's controlled,
Yeah.
yeah.
no,
It has
no,
to-
what I'm saying is like, in other words, it'd be easier to, if we were able to find a place to put it that wasn't $22,000 a year,
Yes.
that would be helpful for you.
That would be awesome.
I was just trying to figure out what it is that, I mean, because obviously if it's like this really super, there's only 3 places in the country and it's everything.
No, that is not, go ahead.
If I can pipe up, one of the attractions of this place is that it's around the corner from the McVicker House. So whenever we change exhibits, we want to store stuff, we want to look into what we've got in our archives and maybe do some maintenance, it's right around the corner from our
But it's
our building.
privately owned, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But the village
so-
has, you know, I mean, we're also cramped for space, but I'm saying like, you know, I mean, we can, I'm just looking for ways to.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah,
of course, you know.
How much space is it?
That's a good question.
Large, it's,
Mary?
just as a guess, it's like a garage times 2, both vertically and horizontally.
So it's a lot.
It's like a warehouse almost.
It
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
it really is.
Okay. I was picturing something different, so yeah, okay.
Am I correct that in your both projected revenues and the 2024 revenues, there's a $5,000 number for McVicker House upkeep? Is that, maybe it's not actually capital expenditures, but it's something that you're spending on that McVicker House itself, yes? All right, well, that's a start anyway. I know you're looking for roughly double that, so,
Well, that's half right there.
yeah. So,
And
Larry,
repairs for 1,000 gets us a little closer.
yeah. So, maybe we should just try to set up a meeting,
We'll do.
whoever you
Sure.
think is appropriate and.
No question came back.
Oh, good. Because I'd run out of questions, that's
No,
good.
it didn't happen. It didn't happen at like 2 in. Great. Thank you for everything that you do for our village.
Thank you.
I've
Thank
attended
you
a
for
number of
that.
your talks and your programs
pleasure.
and actually used your services to research the history of my house. I really appreciate everything that you do for Irvington. I'm wondering, because you listed out, you know, all the various places from research to programming to exhibits, do you have just a number somewhere of like how many people you impact per year?
Yeah, how many people we contact?
Impact.
Oh, well, I think in the letter, we put in that we have a distribution, email distribution list of 2,000, just under 2,000. And we interact, I don't know how we got that.
59%. Yeah.
59%.
Programs to track.
Through our programs.
Okay.
By the way, I took the liberty of asking our email person to add your emails to our distribution list, so you'd be aware of what we're doing in our next program coming up April 27th.
Very smart.
I already got it on my personal.
Great, great.
Sure you have to brag.
Yeah, me too, so.
Yeah.
I have like one question. Have you guys done any like research for grants, like anything to help like support?
Lots of grants, but
Medium.
they're all earmarked for specific purposes, like the digitization of our maps, and we just had a small one for adding a monitor so that we could show documentary shorts in our exhibit space.
I think the dresses get cleaned or something.
Yeah. So what we really need help with is our general expenses. And these grants are, you know, we'd love to use them for whatever we want, but that's not the way they were intended, so.
Understood, and the ambulance corps is not a perfect analogy, but when we have given them money, we've asked them to do certain things relating to service and other things. I'm not suggesting that we're gonna be telling you what to do, but if we start giving you money, there may be some expectations, I don't know what that is, and I haven't thought about it deeply, and I imagine.
John, if you'd love to put together an exhibit,
I know.
we're welcome.
Turnabout is fair play, I got you.
A program on village government.
All right, yeah, we could bring out the bag with the coins, Larry. I had to live through that. Okay, but my point being, you would obviously prefer money with no strings, which is why I was sort of looking at the way
If
do it as
there are
capital.
things that would fit in and would help you, I mean, that's a win-win.
Yeah, actually, I mean, there may be different programs that the village does, that there may be something that we could do as a tie-in or whatever,
I'll take your photographs.
Thank you.
I think we just hired a photographer.
Appreciate that. So, Can't, utilities won't do it.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question, actually? For the legacy program, how do you find people?
Ooh.
Just knowing them or?
We have a team of board members who know a lot of local people. And through them, we contact a bunch of these people, ask them if they're willing to participate. The criteria basically is that they've lived here quite a long time. We love to have people who grew up here because they have stories of, what Irvington was like in the 1950s, or things like that.
That's a long time.
Well, I've lived here a long time, but I didn't grow up here.
Yeah.
So, wherever, I'm gonna be a legacy this year. So, it's a lot of fun.
All right, so we'll set something up, we'll get together and we'll try to sort it out, and then I'll be putting it back to the board, I'm sure, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
for everything
you,
you
thank
do.
you for listening.
And I'm reiterating the point that was made over here, but we do very much appreciate what you do.
Yep.
I always like reading the Ruth, and I do actually get a physical copy somehow.
That's
Maybe because I
right.
remember, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just cut out his physical copy.
Yeah, yes, you
Save
can
some
do
money.
that. You can
Save
do
some
that.
money.
That's the first way we save money, right?
Okay,
You don't mind if we disappear?
not at all.
Just want to make sure we're okay here.
I'm sure you'll be going home to
People do
watch
that
it
all the time.
online.
How'd you guess?
We're used to watching the room empty out after.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Oh, please.
No problem.
He's a good guy, I enjoy it. Yeah. Take care. Take care. See you, Scott.
Really? That's a great story.
Next up is public comment.
You were trying to champion Tony Quad.
I'm telling you.
Anybody have anything they want to say?
Don't tell anybody.
Oh, I don't want to
Mess with the narrative.
Okay.
It was a different time.
I don't know. Any chance you gentlemen in the back row, guys, are you here for was that the fishing letter? Or something else? Yeah,
No, we're Boy Scouts.
We're Boy Scouts, we have rights from your bench.
got it. No problem. Then you know Dan Freed?
Yeah.
That's my brother-in-law, yeah.
No, you came to one of the meetings.
Yes, there you go. But I'm glad you've returned the favor and come to one of mine, so thank you. Okay. Next up is then, if there's no public comment, the consent agenda. And I'm gonna break tradition and just make a motion to adopt that. Anybody want to, unless somebody has questions, I'll take a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I can't help but ask if you have any idea, Larry, what the Nephilim filming permit is.
It's actually a student / low budget type thing, which is why we just threw it on the consent agenda, to be perfectly honest
Got
with
it,
you.
it's fine, no, not a problem. Okay, let's see here. All right, next up is award of contract for shirts for the Irvington Rec and Parks Department. I'm gonna give a little background, and Larry will correct me if I get it wrong, but previously, I don't think either we didn't have enough t-shirts or we didn't aggregate all the purchases, so that's what has happened here. And if you look, you don't have all of the underlying documents, but the t-shirts, I think about 16% of them are roughly staff, and the rest of them is programmatic. So the camp, basketball tournaments, assorted other things, I'm sure I could get a much better description from the back row there, but you get the idea. And I don't know, Larry, is there anything else you want to add on this one?
Yeah, I mean, the prices that are listed are just estimated quantities. They're on a per unit basis. It doesn't mean that we're writing a check for $15,000 to buy X number of t-shirts. they'll place orders based upon enrollment and all of
Yeah,
that. It's-
well, but it also, to that point, if it's 4 programs and people are enrolled, somebody is probably paying a registration fee that partially, if not entirely, covers the cost of the t-shirt. So that's why I made the point that only 16% of them are for staff members. And that assumes the full complement, that they order all those shirts. Anybody else have any other questions? No? Okay. Then whereas 7 bids were received for contract 2025-04 for the shirts for the Irvington Rec and Parks Department as follows, and there are 7 different bids. And whereas the village administrator reviewed the bids submitted and determined that the lowest bidder is responsive to the specifications and resolved to award a purchase contract 2025-04 for the shirts for the Irvington Recreation and Parks Department in the amount of $15,494.65 to Adware and Specialty of Texas, Inc. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is
Good exercise.
an appointment to the Theater Commission. The resolution is resolved to appoint the following as a member of the Theater Commission with a term to expire December 2027. Amy Galeazzi as a member, and if I remember correctly, she had marketing experience, which is
Marketing
valuable.
PR, yeah.
Yeah, so, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, resignation from, yeah, I know you should, I know Mitch is definitely seconding
I'm saying no
this.
to this. No.
Resignation from the Arts and Culture Committee. Resolved to accept with regret the resignation of Adam Stein as a member of the Arts and Culture Committee effective March 17, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And for those who don't know, Adam, we very much appreciate the work you've done before, and we were not laughing at all in connection with you. It was more that Mitch has a tradition of questioning why we have to accept resignations.
I didn't say anything this time.
I know, I can't help it. At this point, I've become muscle memory.
It's fine.
Okay. Authorizing the hiring of special counsel to represent participating Westchester municipalities in Con Edison's electric and gas rate case before the Public Service Commission. We've all heard a lot about Con Ed's proposed rate increases, and communities have gotten together, I think, led by Bronxville, who am I?
Looks like rye.
Right, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Rybrook.
Authorizing the hiring of a particular council. It'll only happen if there are at least 20 communities, which means we're not committing more than $5,000, but this is basically fighting for ratepayers, the residents of this village. So, and Westchester County has already indicated that they're gonna devote a couple staffers and some time and effort to doing the same thing. So, anybody have any questions on this one? Otherwise, I will read it. Whereas on January 31, 2025, Con Edison filed a petition with the New York Public Service Commission to increase electric and gas rates as of January 1, 2026. Whereas under this petition, electric rates would rise by 18%, with residential delivery charges increasing by 25.1% and natural gas delivery rates rising by 19.1%. And whereas this Con Ed rate hike proposal comes after an increase of 20% in rates over the past 3 years, and any further significant increases would have negative financial impacts on residents and businesses within Westchester County. And whereas the Public Service Commission is currently reviewing Con Edison's petition for an electric and gas rate increase, and whereas it is in the best interest of the Village of Irvington to be represented in this matter to ensure the concerns of local governments and its residents are adequately addressed, and whereas Joel R. Dichter of Dichter Law LLC has the necessary experience and expertise to represent the interests of the participating municipalities in this case, and has submitted a proposal dated February 13, 2025 to represent participating municipalities. And whereas the proposal includes intervening in the rate case, conducting discovery, retaining expert witnesses, preparing briefs, and attending all hearings and any settlement negotiations at a total cost that shall not exceed $100,000, which would be split equally among all of the participating municipalities that accept his representation in this case, in this rate case. And whereas such representation will only proceed if at least 20 municipalities agree to be represented by Joel R. Dichter of Dichter Law LLC. Now therefore be it resolved by the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Irvington as follows. The municipality hereby authorizes the hiring of Joel R. Dichter of Dichter Law LLC as special counsel to represent participating Westchester municipalities in Con Edison's electric and gas rate case before the Public Service Commission. And the municipality's share of the legal fee shall be determined based on equal division among all participating municipalities, with the total amount of such representation not to exceed $100,000. As an example, that if you have 20 municipalities, it'll be $5,000 each. And this authorization shall only take effect if at least 20 municipalities agree to be represented by Joel R. Dichter of Dichter Law LLC in this matter. The village administrator is hereby authorized to take all necessary actions to execute agreements and related documents and make payments in furtherance of this resolution. This resolution shall take effect immediately, and be it further resolved that the village of Rybrook shall coordinate the payment to Joel R. Dichter of Dichter Law LLC on behalf of the participating municipalities for representation in this Con Edison electric and gas rate case, and be it further resolved to authorize the clerk treasurer to make payments to the village of Rybrook or Dichter Law LLC in accordance with this resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of agreement with Pace University. In connection with our streamlining committee, we have decided to retain the Pace University Law School to facilitate the process that they're going to go through of deciding how best to improve the throughput of the approvals by our land use committees. And this, I guess the contract probably is following this, yes. It's a consulting agreement, it's $20,000, and it will be done over several months, and there will be community input. The committee has, I think, about 15, 16 people on it now, with a few architects, members of all of our land use boards, residents who have been through the building experience, and it will start, the committee itself will start with an educational session done by our village attorney, and then the process will be managed, although there are two co-chairs of the committee, the process will be managed by the facilitator, and the work product will come back to this board to decide exactly how to address it. So if anybody have questions.
Now, I would just encourage people to read the scope of work on this one, because I think it's really important for people to understand that the scope of what they're doing should be very helpful in terms of sort of evaluating and the analysis, what other jurisdictions, what other places do. They have a lot of experience, and I think it will, that's going to be very helpful in this process.
Agreed.
But I would encourage people to read that.
So the resolution is resolved to approve the agreement with Pace University in the amount of $20,000 for professional services related to the land use streamlining project, and authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, the Irvington Schools requested that the village board support an application they have before the New York State Department of Transportation to change the timing of lighting, I guess they call it pedestrian signal phase, at Dow's Lane. And we had a member of the police department take a look at it, and they're in agreement with what they're proposing to do. It'll add to the safety of people trying to cross, I think, specifically Broadway. And we don't think it'll negatively impact traffic that is flowing through there. Anything you want to add to that?
No, that's it.
Okay, anybody questions? No? Okay, then, and they asked that we adopt a resolution just to show New York State that we are supporting them. So the resolution is resolved that the village board hereby requests the New York State Department of Transportation to consider the implementation of an exclusive pedestrian signal phase at Dow's Lane Route 9 intersection. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, well, I guess you have the letter following that. Okay, this one I can't tell you about. Larry, you want? Authorization to approve change order 1 for the audiovisual project in the meeting room.
Yeah, this is an easy one. So we have a contract to redo the audiovisual in this room. They should be doing that work in about 3 weeks. And in the course of going through the documents, they realized that there's a piece of equipment that we don't need, but then there's another piece of equipment that we do need. And the net change on that is actually a credit of about $1,500. So that's a good thing.
We'll take it.
So we have to approve taking the money?
We have to approve paying them less. Because the
Kind of like
auditor.
when we are accepting that.
No, it's kind of,
Yeah,
no, it's
I
kind
knew
of.
where you were going.
It's kind of not, and you're wrong this case, in this case.
Please, tell me.
No, but it's actually, what the auditors do actually look at the original contract that was
Oh, I see.
approved.
That makes
And they
sense.
look at the amount that, and then any changes to that contract, and that should equal the amount of payments that we make at the end. So it does reconcile.
Yes, I make sense. I never should question the accounting on it.
See that? The other stuff you're right on.
All right, the resolution is resolved to approve change order number 1 with ProMotion Technology Group LLC in the amount of $1,501.24 as a credit for the audiovisual project in the meeting room, and to authorize the village administrator to execute said change order. Do I have a second?
Happily second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so next up is the budget discussion of our preliminary budget. And Katie, unless you have something you wanted to introduce, I can go through your total requests,
Okay,
all right?
yeah. I can just start out by saying that after taking into account all of the requests that we received from the departments, the end number that we have to start out with is $150,996 in excess of the tax cap.
Okay, so roughly $150,000. And we had occasion earlier in the week, Larry, our village administrator, clerk treasurer, and I met and asked for input from everybody, and we've been getting it, and everybody on the board, and they're gonna have a chance now, but the three of us sort of made a rough list of things that we thought could get us to below the tax cap, and I'm gonna go through them now. And the board has seen these, but not had a full opportunity to comment on them. And what this will do when we're done is it takes us about $170,000, because we need a little bit of margin in case we have changes in assessment after the fact, as you both explained to me, that when there is a change like that, it is possible that our taxes would go up after the fact, out of our control. So you kind of have to give yourself a little bit of margin, knowing what may be subject to challenge. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, like for example, if someone owned a property and had a veteran's exemption on their house, sold it, and then the new owner didn't qualify for those exemptions, we would get a list from Greenberg after the fact and then have to go and bill for that, which would make the amount of taxes that we originally planned to collect even higher.
Got it. Okay. So I'm gonna go through these, and some that were suggested by trustees that we didn't do, and I think, Mitch, you had some others. And anybody else can jump in anytime they want, but the initial proposal that gets us to, I don't know, about $21,800 below the tax cap is, there was a proposal relating to, but this is in the Irvington Police Department, Puppies Behind Bars program, which we would not do, although I did discuss with the chief the possibility of helping get some contributions that might be able to support.
There was something I meant to say about that, my email,
Yeah.
I forgot. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So Katie, do you remember when the chief was here with the police budget, he mentioned that of that 12,000, in the future years, it's gonna be lower. There were some initial startup costs, and the number 8 was in my head, but I couldn't remember if it was 8 that's initial and it's gonna go to 6, or 8 is what it's always going to be, and there's an extra 6 this year. Do you remember?
I think the 8 was more so what it would continue to be.
I think that's right, because it was
That's
spitting
yeah.
out the car and doing
Right,
certain things
so
you won't repeat.
my thought was that
Yeah.
if we do take this out of the budget for this year and try and get, maybe we could use 6,000 of fund balance for the stuff that's just for upfront this year that will never be happen again. And that takes some pressure off of the chief or ever us and whoever's raising money to
That-
raise money for the rest.
That's true, but you can do it at any point in time without putting it in the budget. Would that be a fair statement? In other words, if we.
Out is out is what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just a way to look at it.
I can't prep for it and then I'm basically committing whoever, actually you and I won't be on the board at that point, that's all. I'm not gonna compel our respective
Right.
successors to do something. I'd rather try to get outside contributions for this, where it's relevant, to your point, is knowing that you've got an $8,000 repeat, and is the next board willing to follow up
Right.
with that expenditure?
Lower amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which is why not having it in it and coming back to the board and saying, okay, we've got enough contributions. Does everybody feel comfortable that you'd want to do this for a future year? Next up was it's also in the police department, having to do with the enforcement officer. This was a code enforcement officer. There would have been an increase of $15,000 in expense, in salary increase, and there's an offset in revenues of fines and forfeitures. These are assumed revenues of about $10,000, so it has a net $5,000 effect. And I want to, on this particular point, digress for a moment because it's relevant to the function that could have been performed by the code officer, and relevant to at least one, and probably maybe more than one person who's listening now. And that is the question about, this relates to fishing at Halsey Pond. There were many things that a code enforcement officer could do, but fishing at Halsey Pond and dogs off leash in the woods were two of the things that might very well have been included. And so we asked the chief chief of police, what exactly we can do with current staffing if you don't add this particular expenditure. And the answer is, he looked historically to see how many tours you would have an extra officer. So there are, in 2023, during the summer, April 1 to July 1, and 2024, again, April 1 to, July 31 in both cases, you had 7 tours with an extra officer and 6 tours with an extra officer respectively. That goes to the coverage of the woods with the dog. With regard to Halsey Pond, they can make somewhat more regular circuits around Halsey Pond to do enforcement, whether it's fishing or otherwise. I will say, as an aside, since the RPAC chair is here, that the chief did ask that we do something just to clarify some of the signage, and I think that's part of what you're looking at. He asked the question of, and I don't want to get off on a tangent, but he asked the question of, is for clarity with regard to whether it's residents or not residents that are allowed to use that park. And my recollection, and this is from memory, so we can revisit it at a subsequent time, that literally was in the deed of transfer. We can debate that, we can fight over it, but that is why there is some signage there that indicates that it's for people who live in Irvington. And, you know,
It's only a part of Pond, a part of it is not.
How do you know that?
The deed, because Chet went down the history on it.
It's the part that is around the water.
The whole part around the water?
Yeah.
Oh.
The part that's to the west at the end of Hamilton
Yeah.
is probably not part of that restriction.
That, anyway,
But it's woodland.
Yeah, understood, and I didn't want to digress, but I wanted, since, Rick, since you're here, and I appreciate that you came and you stuck it out, to give you information, and if there's something you don't have, you can email me and we'll figure it out. Okay, the next item,
Before you get there, can I
Sure.
just
Yeah,
say
yeah,
something
course.
specifically here? Because I do want to say that the last time we talked about this, I did refer to the parking enforcement officer as the ticketing person. So I just wanted to be clear that that was in no way meant to disparage him. I think as part of our larger conversation about what a code enforcement officer would do, I think we have some way to go between what we think a code enforcement officer would do versus the police. And I think that's where the policy piece is not exactly worked out. So, I want to apologize to him, but, and just be clear that it was not meant to disparage him, but just meant to say that, we had not figured out the policy pieces. And that was really the issue I think a lot of us had with increasing it without having clear policy goals.
thank you, and it's a fair point, and it's a difficulty, I think, that we all confront when we deal with the budget, because all of these dollars impact people one way or another, and we never forget that, but we have to deal with the numbers on their face. And I know that wasn't entirely your
Yeah.
point, but we all struggle with that same kind of issue. Okay, the next item is health insurance. We took a look back and we lowered the assumption for 2026 from 15 to 12%. And we didn't just pull that out of a hat. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but
We looked at the past 3 years, and increases, 15%, was on the very high end, so we still feel comfortable lowering it to 12%. We do anticipate there being a large increase since this year there wasn't much, but 12%, should be good.
let's see, and that is a $35,000 savings. Next up was Recreation Department and Personnel Services there. It's a savings of $40,000 for salary and health benefits. There was a request for a full-time person, and we are recommending that it be a part-time person. I'm drawing a blank on whether it was 27 hours or, it's gotta be, I think it was 27 hours that we said. And that will be allocated among, it's gonna be up to of course, the superintendent of the rec department, but my impression was it would be allocated among woods, and programs, and maybe a few other things that.
Seniors. Yeah.
Seniors, thank you. And we get the chance to, won't be me, but my successors will get the chance to take a look at that position again. July 4th, we actually we increased by $5,000 the cost of fireworks. It's not that we're seeking to spend more, this sort of just reflects the reality of the cost of fireworks and the cost of police and DPW and other associated costs. We will try to get a lesser, spend a lesser dollar amount on the actual fireworks, but it seems like the general pattern of people who are spending on fireworks is 20 to 25 grand, probably closer to 25 grand. And we're also open to doing the fireworks on July 5th if that introduces a savings as well. Let's see, the building department had asked for a part-timer for 27 hours, and we are recommending that it be 17 hours a week. That is a $15,000 savings. I know they have a lot to do, but
Did they ever give us the numbers?
of who they see and what,
How many people come by?
I know he was tracking them.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen the numbers
Because
yet.
I would walk in and he would say, and start writing it down. He did it as a joke, but I get it.
We'll get those numbers.
Yeah. Membership dues. There's a couple of things that we can do out of fund balance, which we hope will be increased this year when the fiscal year is over. But we do have a healthy fund balance, and these are, I'll call them one-off items that get us to a below the tax cap. And the reason you can do that is that if you pick an item that is going to continue in a future year, what you're doing is basically saying every year you're going to have to take from fund balance. It's like committing to use your savings account for something because you don't have enough income coming in. But here's a few of them. One is we are hosting, and this truly is a one-time thing, the Westchester Municipal Officials meeting, and that cycles through, I guess, community by community. I don't know how many members there are, but it's got to be 20, 30, maybe more.
Yeah, it happens roughly every 4 years.
Okay, so, and that's $15,000. Professional fees, the next two expenses, which add up to about $48,000, a little more than that, relate to finding a successor for the village administrator. A portion of the search costs and a portion of the salary overlap can be, we can use fund balance for that. They won't, we certainly hope they won't repeat themselves anytime soon. And then certain DPW equipment, they're getting 12 portable radios, it's $5,000. And DPW supplies, I guess they have to, is it Westchester regulation that
Yes.
requires? Oh, thank you.
Because I talked to Todd about this.
Got it. Both recycling and wastebasket, they sort of be paired together, and they were slowly rolling them out, but we just decided we'll just do it in one shot. It's $2,500 we'll take out of fund balance. So that gets us to a reduction of $172,833 from what the tentative budget was, which is about $21,837 below the tax cap. And the total fund balance being used, and this is not just for the things I described, but for things that may have been carried forward from prior years, it's about $361,000. And at this point, although it's a little preliminary, we expect that the fund balance will grow by more than that between now and the end of this fiscal year. Is that a sort of a fair statement here?
Yes.
Okay. So those are the proposed items. And by the way, for anybody out there in the community, all this, what I just described, all this means if we choose to adopt it, is that goes into the tentative budget that everybody out there gets to take a look at, and there will be 1-2 hearings. I think I probably announced one of them earlier, April 7th.
April 7th and April 21st.
Thank you. So everybody gets a chance, and I think Arlene, you had made this point at prior meetings, email us, don't wait till the last minute.
Please comment.
Yeah, yes, please comment, that's probably a politer way of saying it. And then there were a couple other suggestions that were made that we didn't do, but it doesn't mean we can't. It was suggested that we reduce the geese removal, but I know every time I have raised that, I've gotten, in the parks, I've gotten people telling me stories of just walking through the park and having to scrape their shoes off. So, and it is certainly worth waiting to see, particularly in Matheson, whether the introduction of dogs changes the calculation a little bit. So.
One would think so, since what's used to do that is
Yeah.
dogs.
Yeah, I get it. So, well, we got to encourage people to walk their dogs.
I mean, I would do it for free.
That's good, all right, that's fine.
I honestly,
I mean, and also I spoke to Maureen about that, and she said that she couldn't reduce the cost because they would not, she was gonna try to do it in one park and not both, so.
But as they said, they have to come here, so it's the same
Yeah.
either way. She said that at the,
Yeah, so, but I do think that's something that we have discussed many years in a row, and that it would be fantastic if our normal dog walking would eliminate the need for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do sometimes wonder though, the effectiveness of
Yeah.
this person that we're hiring as well, only having them come once or twice a day.
Yeah.
Like I sit there at the boat club and I walk, when it was going to Madison, they would show up, the geese would move over to our beach and then they would go right back as soon as it was gone. So I have long wondered about this.
Well, not that Larry and I are experts on this, but we were talking about other things you can do, what is it, egg addling or something
Yeah.
like that?
I was reading about this,
Yeah,
there's like a series
so-
of like things you could do. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you probably need a professional to do that too, so they know what they're doing,
I would imagine.
that probably reduces the number of geese on which you have imprinted this particular location. So that's something to think about. Let's see, another item that was suggested was eliminate the fireboat lease, but Irvington has mutual aid agreements with other communities. And also, it's likely, since construction, I think is just about starting now, that we won't be spending the full, whatever it is, $5,700 on that this year, depending on when they finish the construction. Fireworks, I think I already talked about. And then, Mitch, you had a couple things. One was, probably the biggest is, don't do the deer, which is $50,000.
I know I'm alone, but I'm
Yeah, no,
saying,
I
and then of
understand
the
it's-
150,000
that's a
that were in the
fair-
budget, I'd rather have spent for those 150,000 than for killing the deer.
I get it.
Can I follow up on the fireboat issue?
Yes.
I'm not necessarily against the fireboat, but I was actually, as someone who's been hearing that the construction would be finished for 3 years, and every year being said that it was gonna happen that year, and I love the boat club. It is, I'm still skeptical that it will be done in time, so I wonder if we could get like a reasonable estimate of like when it would be done, so like it would prorate the amount.
I think we just send them the approval.
So we can work.
Well, it's not,
Yeah, exactly, because right now it seems like a.
yeah, I mean, apparently they're just ready to award a contract to someone to do the reconstruction of
I've
the
heard that
dock.
before.
Well, it-
I'd said all those meetings.
What's the time frame once that happens?
I
Is
don't
it a
know.
quick thing, or is it this like a year-long thing?
It's supposed to be a number of months, but I think there's been a lot of things impeding it, like all these different environmental studies and things that have just like slowed it down, and like fights with the insurance company, and it's been one thing after another. I was hoping that I'm wrong, but it's been a few years of being a little jaded.
Well, based on the letter I saw today, it's sort of in their hand, in the boat
I
club's
think with that letter, they can get their building permit.
Okay.
So they've submitted plans to the building department, but they needed this sign off from us, which
Yeah.
basically said, we understand you're gonna be working offshore and, some of the details of the project.
I could look into it though, I could see if.
I mean,
if they're on
I have a
schedule.
direct dialogue with
Oh, you do?
with Todd, yeah.
Oh, okay,
So I mean, I can find out
great, thank you.
to the best of his knowledge what it is.
And then, Mitch, you made a point that I think is sort of global, and that's about not increasing.
Do you want me to say?
Well, I mean, yeah, I was gonna.
So
I do, actually.
Yeah, no, so this is something, no one's gonna be surprised to hear me say this, because I've been saying it in multiple meetings and different questions is, but I have concerns over the size of the workforce of the village in light of a lot of the things that are coming. And I thought that, for this year, maybe to have a kind of blanket on not adding any new recurring permanent type of positions, whether it's pay, whether it's a new position, whether it's hours, whatever it is. Obviously, we should honor our union agreements, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do anything like that. We have to give raises that have been agreed to, we have to abide by the agreements that we've made, but in areas where we haven't made agreements, the one thing I was open to is something like the building department. The question is that meant to be an ongoing yearly thing, or my understanding from the building department's presentation is that this is like, we have this backlog, we're gonna bring someone in for a few months to cure the backlog, and then we can go back to our normal staffing, right? Is that the understanding or
Well,
no?
the first point I would make is we just cut 10 hours off whatever
Right.
time they were gonna have, so it may
Right.
take them longer to do whatever they were doing. I don't know that I can speak for Ed as to whether it was temporary or long-term, but it is part-time, which means you have the flexibility of making a decision in the future of saying, okay, we can't afford this, so.
Right, so like I said, I'm not being doctrinal about this.
Yeah.
I have no problem with the moves that were made that you just laid out. I'm not opposing that.
I get it.
I was just saying that another way to think about things is that I think that's something that we really need to be cognizant of, and I don't want it to sneak up on us, that things start happening and it's like, oh my God, what do we do?
Sure.
So I was just saying that as a policy, like I said, I've been saying this for a long time, it's not like a new thing to plug the hole in the budget, although it helped plug the hole in the budget, is to say again, anything that's recurring, anything that's committing next year, you know, we should, and raises fall into that, because if you give a raise, you can't take that away from people, right? And I just think that that's something that we should consider going through the different departments, you know, when they ask for. So that's why, that's another reason why I can't support, you know, changing the traffic officer to a code enforcement officer, because that's a permanent change that's ongoing, that can't be undone and things like that. So that's just something to think about.
Parking enforcement officer to code enforcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did I say something?
No, you said traffic is a different person.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, parking
The,
enforcement,
the
yes.
traffic enforcement is a
Yes,
different person.
I'm sorry. I
Yeah, no,
misspoke,
I'm
yeah.
just, no, I'm just.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
We, in all of our meetings, you'd always ask like what the priorities of the different departments. Did you get any feedback on that?
Other than, you know, specifically to some, like in particular, the chief sort of gave me rankings of
So
the
that went
things
into
that
like
he
this
wanted,
conversation.
yeah,
That's
that
what I was
did go
wondering.
into this, yeah.
And I know that I thought about the tasers, but, you know, because they're used so infrequently, but he's been asking for those for many years. And each year I've asked him, like, can you go another year? And he's like, well, we can, but and this year it just sounded like we've reached that point where it's no longer safe to have our officers with us.
That's exactly the issue I was wondering about
Yeah.
between the puppies and the tasers.
And we did have a
And that's
discussion.
why I didn't bring up the tasers, just to know. I'm not saying that, I
Yeah.
don't mean that to be dispositive, I'm just saying that's why I never brought it up.
Yeah. But with the tasers, like, are we asking for like the top of the line, you know, all bells and whistles tasers, and are those necessary since they aren't used?
I think most of the cost is the maintenance, and we did have a discussion in our subgroup about could you get half 1 year and half
That's
the next
actually
year?
was my next question.
And it doesn't work like that because of the maintenance.
It's fully, and yeah, it's a full subscription model is the issue. So it's not as though you could put capital money up front and then just pay maintenance for the rest. It's a subscription over the entire period, so you're
I see.
subscribing to the equipment too. It's not a good situation.
Yeah, which means they'll swap out if something's not working, they're
Yeah.
fixing it or.
Which is the good part of it, sure.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, is there another option where they could be purchased but like phased in smaller numbers? I mean, I can understand them needing to. have
Not
them.
through
I
this
mean,
manufacturer, and I'm not aware of any other competing models. And they know it.
yeah,
Let's put it that way.
that's helpful.
It's frustrating.
Monopoly.
So,
Well, I don't know if it's that strong, but it's just frustrating, that's all.
to be clear, and you're welcome to continue asking questions, but you will get at the next two sessions the opportunity to ask anything you want. What we're really doing at this point, and I don't even think we have to do it as a resolution, we're just giving Katie an indication that she should incorporate these, the listing that she had, you know, put together of our conversation into the tentative budget, and that's the version that you would issue.
Correct.
Okay. So if you've got questions or concerns, and even if you wanna ask staff members, your questions, although I'd ask if you could at least tee it up as an email so the rest of us, and I'm not singling you out, just
I was
looking at
looking
you.
at me.
You know, it's just so that the rest of
Yes.
us can see what the question and the
Yeah.
answer are, that would be helpful. And although it may not matter as much to them, you're still working on your letter, right? Or what will be my letter, I guess?
Yes,
That
once
draft.
we decide on what
Yes,
we want the tentative budget to look like,
before you write the
then we
letter.
can finalize
yes.
that,
Okay,
yes.
no problem.
No crystal balls.
Exactly. Okay, if there's nothing else on this one, I'm gonna switch to just reports of the board standing committees and officers. Trustee liaison reports, you wanna start at that end?
Yes. You know, I spent. Wait. If you're ready, we can be.
Yeah, you can.
But I just need to get my.
The order is, you know,
If
anybody who
I'm
wants
short,
to
so I can
go,
go.
go ahead.
Yeah, so, yeah, as you heard tonight, the theater has a new commissioner, which is exciting. The library, make sure you're getting their, every other week email. There's a lot of great things going on, you know, just in the next couple of weeks. There's yoga, there's, yarn work. I assume that's like knitting, a book club, a movie, chess, game night. I mean, these are all very different things. I don't think people know. I mean, so many people take advantage of the library. We see that in the engagement numbers, that it's so high. But I think there's even still a lot of people that don't realize how many programs are running at the library. And it's just a really great thing. And I haven't mentioned the tree commission, I'm the new liaison, I've been going, I think I've only missed one meeting so far, although I can't go tomorrow night. And they seem to be working really well, and there was one issue that I brought to the board, that seems to be resolved really well, and they're going out and covering it, and they seem to be running really smoothly, so, that seems to be, that's great very well.
For some reason, that reminded me of our discussion of the native plant policy. I don't think anybody objected to when you tried to somehow miraculously capture our discussion in a paragraph. Do you want to send it at some point to, I guess, Chet and anybody else who might be interested, and then we can either debate by email or tee up a follow-up meeting at some point?
Yeah, I figured we'd end up with a follow-up meeting, but
Okay.
I'll circulate it.
No problem. Anybody want to go next?
Sure, I can go. I have an update from the superintendent's office, the school superintendent. There was an incident actually earlier this month on March 10th. There was a social media post that they caused a lockdown. The schools, the high school and the middle school were locked down, and there was a lockout for the Main Street in Downs. I think it was cleared, and I think a lot of the staff did a great job following their safety plan. There was, I know, some concerns about the communication. It was a little bit delayed, but they were trying to avoid like misinformation and panic from the community. Upcoming things that are going on in the schools, there's a Neurodiversity Celebration Week, March 17th to the 23rd this week, dedicated to challenging stereotypes and promoting inclusion for neurodivergent individuals. The 25-26 district calendar has been approved by the Board of Education, and families are encouraged to review it. The Village of Irvington's organizing an anti-idling education effort that they're working with the school board and with the police, and volunteers are distributing information. And a Board of Education meeting on March 11th featured a presentation of the curriculum budget that was adopted. And I know there's the next meeting at the end of the month, there's a budget meeting.
Yeah, well, April will soon be upon us, so from our friends at the Green Policy Task Force, there's going to be a number of events and opportunities for the community to engage with green policy programming. So keep a lookout for that. I'm flagging the letter that we got from Paul Kleiner about recycling and just as a potential intersection. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad he sent it.
Yeah, so just flagging, kind of trying to pay attention to like how, when we're recycling, how much are we actually recycling? Like what is actually being recycled? We're doing a good job of, I think, separating our trash, but how much of it is actually being recycled, so something worth noting. And then from our hardworking highway department, a number of storm drain fix, streetlight fix, and tree removal from Horizon Lines.
Okay.
Just one quick question. When Todd was here, did he say that the recycling also, we don't pay for that?
Yeah.
The
But we're
garbage?
going to.
Yeah, okay, but still, that's a savings.
It's a great thing to
That's
point
a-
out to
yeah.
people, to the community, just like if you want to save money for the village,
Yeah.
like recycle please.
Yes.
Right, but Paul's point was.
But it's not
not getting
helping.
recycled.
Yeah, what's happening to
The
it
trucks
is
are
his
collecting it,
question.
but is it actually being
Yeah.
sent and like
Right.
processed into something different?
Well, that's problematic. It still saves money.
It does save us money, does
Yeah.
not
There's a
save
bright
the
side.
planet
Blah,
necessarily.
blah,
Right.
blah.
I have a update from Maureen. So registration continues for day camp and Teenscape Session 2. Applications are now available to work at the day camp. You have to be 16 and older. Registration continues for the following spring programs at Scenic Hudson Youth Running Clinic, 7 to 13 years of age. Wayfinders Wise Owl Walking Program for 65 plus. Adult pickleball. At the O'Hare Nature Center, Wayfinders Babies and Caregivers in Nature Exploration. STEAM classes for K through 5th grade. Japanese Barberry Removal Program. At the IK Benjamin Community Center, Little Tot Drop-Off Program. Cooking for 1st grade and older. Meditative drawing for 4th grade and older. Meditative drawing for adults. The Modern Marionette Company performance is on March 22nd, and registration is required. At Memorial Park, soccer clinic for first and second grade, and ultimate frisbee for 6th through 8th grade. At Main Street School, Friday fun night for 4th and 5th grade. My daughter did that, actually. Registration is also available for rec youth sports teams. Contact Angela Thornton for details. And senior citizen program is available for residents 55 years of age or older residing in the village or within the Irvington School District. And to join, contact Joan Armstrong at 914-591-7786.
Thank you. Village administrator report.
So last week, we successfully submitted the DEC Urban Forestry Grant application for the Irvington Woods. It was an application that was approximately $380,000 worth of work. So that'll be really large amount of work if we can get it in terms of a grant. So we'll see. We also.
Forgive me, that's the one that is shared by a couple communities, or is that just Irvington?
That's just Irvington's portion. We submitted this particular grant separately, which was advised by the DEC.
Okay.
But Hastings also submitted a grant, which we expected. We also are working with our engineer and our landscape architect and our grant writer on pulling together the information for the Green Innovations Grant Program, which would provide for the design and construction of a riparian buffer in Matheson Park. Just we're pulling the concepts together. Of course, we're not designing it right now, but just the budgets and all that. And that's due in April.
That's to protect the park from the storm surge.
That would be the goal, but it's not the entire perimeter. It's really the northern area of the park, behind the area where the stage is planned. I don't want to say it's demonstration. It's a fairly large area, but it's not the entire boundary of the park.
Yeah, I think that was something, Chet and others have come in and certainly in favor of doing something. So that's great. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Just busy working on the budget, and it'll be posted on Thursday to the village website.
Great.
No report.
Nothing? Anybody else have public comment?
I thought I was gonna be on the agenda, so I guess I'll talk now.
Okay.
I wasn't sure when I was supposed to speak. So I was gonna, Larry, I'm okay to talk about this now, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so just a little conversation about my budget, because I'm not really one of the departments that has a, designates time to have a whole budget conversation, because my budget is so small. But before that, I actually want to just add to the committee updates and talk about something that I'm so excited about that's happening as a result of the climate planning and resilience planning and the vulnerability assessment. One of the things that we realized would be really helpful is building out like a mutual aid network per neighborhood, figuring out who the vulnerable populations, getting neighbors to work together, figuring out what communication channels are per development, HOA, neighborhood, et cetera. And a bunch of brainstorming came up with this fantastic idea that's got so much wind now. I'm really excited. I'm partnering with the Presbyterian Church and Comron's Rivertown's Playhouse Theater Group to create a zombie survival game, which is a resilience game, which actually is going to have a whole month of activities and engagement, and it's going to bring all these people in who would never normally participate in a boring and kind of depressing survival resilience conversation. So we're figuring out how to gamify the whole thing, but the idea is that neighborhoods would team together and plot out, fill in our survey, figure out who's in their communication channels and who isn't, if it's a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group, what do they have? Some people are like, we don't have any, I'm so sad, I don't know any of my neighbors. I'm like, it's okay, I got your back, we're gonna do this. So we're already figuring out how to really build something substantial here through the process of the game. The month of May is gonna be where the teams get points by taking these steps, and then it's going to be a giant zombie survival game at the Presbyterian Church on May 30th. So watch this space. I'm very excited about that. And then
In terms of budget, so every year I have been doing one big event. Last year it was the Energy Expo we did with all the river towns. It was a very, very substantial, successful event in terms of vendors and participants and moving the needle in terms of renewable energy and clean energy solutions. So, but we did that, basically with no budget and like 50 volunteers. And every month I have a climate talk, which I get food for. We do our printouts, posters, plants for the aqueduct, all these volunteers who come. Actually, there's an aqueduct cleanup event April 19th, I also wanted to point out, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we pull out all the invasives. In order to keep the invasives at bay, you need to plant natives. And we're really kind of just doing this. I mean, Larry has found funds for us, but we have never really had a budget to actually do these things. So I would like to suggest a $6,000 budget for the Irvington Green Policy Task Force to meet all of these needs, kind of looking at what we've spent in the past or what would have been helpful to have as official budget.
I should
putting
point
that
out,
out
and I
there.
apologize for
Not putting me on the agenda.
For not having you on the agenda. After the presentation that you made back in February,
Yeah,
or the items that were in your slide deck.
yeah, I was kind of sneaking it in
Those
there.
items, so the $6,000 you were just asked for were actually factored into the budget already, so.
Oh, okay,
So you don't have to,
great.
you don't have to beg for
Hey,
anything.
done.
Matter of fact, we put in 6,200,
Great.
so thanks to Katie.
Should have asked for more.
Thanks to Katie.
I should have stayed home with the kids tonight.
So, now, you had listed them out as like the Earth Month event or
Yeah, the
something like
big
that, but
Expo
it's-
of the Year
Yeah,
equivalent.
it's flexible. It doesn't have to be for a specific purpose, but
Yeah.
that's what the money that was allocated for.
Oh, and the scouts are gone. I think they're going to get involved as well. Yeah, so it's a big participatory group thing, so I think it's going to be great. So, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else with public comment? Okay, then I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Don't get too eager.
I